The Pioneers have circled the wagon on the volleyball court. Phil Poupore jumps into the set to see if the volleyball team can keep their hot streak going.
Thanks, Kyle. It has been a very interesting season for the Lady Pioneers volleyball team thus far. The team opened the season with back-to-back wins, but struggled thereafter, losing 6 consecutive matches. However, after that 6-game losing streak, the Lady Pioneers bounced back in a big way with their own 8-game winning streak. The Pioneers' last loss came Saturday, August 30th against Trinity Christian. Since then, the Pioneers haven't lost, and even more impressive than that is the way in which they've won. They have swept every game 3-0, which amounts to 24 straight sets won. The most dominant win of this stretch came this past Friday, August 12th, against conference rival Alice Lloyd. The Lady Pioneers won with a combined score of 25-3, 25-10, and 25-6. That was the first game of a conference doubleheader that the Pioneers went on to sweep by beating Midway later in the day by a score of 25-21, 27-25, and 25-11. Currently, the Lady Pioneers have an overall record of 10-6, but they're leading the KIAC with a conference record of 6-0. No one else in the conference has yet to surpass 2 wins, and as of right now, the Pioneers are 2.5 games ahead of Asbury, IU Kokomo, and Rio Grande, who are tied for second in the conference. The Lady Pioneers will be looking to keep up the momentum as they move toward the midpoint of the season. This week, the Pioneers have a home game Friday, September 19th at 7 p.m. in the Student Center Gymnasium against conference rival IU Kokomo. Then the Pioneers will travel to Wheeling Jesuit, West Virginia the next day for a doubleheader against West Virginia State and Wheeling Jesuit. There's still plenty of volleyball left ahead of the Lady Pioneers this season, but at this point in time, Point Park could not be in a better position moving forward.
Well, Phil, what can we expect in the road ahead for this Pioneers volleyball team?
Well, I think we can expect great things. I think that they can definitely keep the win streak going. I don't know if they can keep the consecutive sets win streak going. 24 is very impressive. I think their biggest test will be against Wheeling Jesuit. They are currently 7-1, so I think that is going to be a big game, even though it is a non-conference matchup. So you don't expect this team to be seesawy all year, kind of how they started, rough start, playing really great right now. Do you expect them to hit another rough patch, then good again? Well, they have over half of the season left to play, so I think that there are opportunities for them to stumble, but I think with the way they're playing right now, I think they really are on a good path to keep the winning ways going.
All right, so how big is it for this team to start out 6-0 in conference?
Oh, that's huge. Like I said, that the other teams like Asbury and IU Kokomo haven't even surpassed 2 wins yet. So for them to have a 2.5 game cushion over all of the other teams in the conference with half the season left to go, that's a huge cushion for them to have the rest of the way out.
Thanks, Phil. Last week you heard from Jake Como about how the rugby team wants to be a strong force in this conference this year. Josh Croup jumps into the ruck to see if they could get their first win of the season.
Thanks, Kyle. The rugby team dropped their second straight game to start the 2014 season against Geneva College 33-10 on Saturday, September 13th. Both teams were looking for their first win of the season at Reeve Field on the Geneva College campus. Geneva was coming off a whopping 68-14 loss against Franciscan the week before, and Point Park was trying to bounce back from a 26-10 loss against Grove City College. During last season's fall finale, Geneva picked up one of the team's 2 victories on the season against Point Park. It took the Pioneers almost 10 minutes just to move the ball into Grove City territory. The Golden Tornadoes found themselves with an early 14-0 lead just past the halfway point in the first half. Soon after that, Point Park's Jake Como forced a turnover and led the team down the field to put the Pioneers on the board. The score gave Point Park momentum going into the half and gave them a much-needed confidence booster. This didn't stop Geneva, though, as they scored only 90 seconds into the second half to pad their lead to 21-5. Como was on the verge of scoring again when his try was called back after a penalty. 5 minutes later, however, he would cross the goal line yet again to pull Point Park within 11. Down the stretch, fatigue began to set in for Point Park, and Geneva took advantage, forcing multiple turnovers, out-hustling the Pioneers to a 33-10 victory. Point Park will try to move on quickly ahead of the much-anticipated match against rival Carnegie Mellon University. CMU is the one game that every player has circled on their calendars. There will be a tailgate in Village Park hosted by Campus Activities Board from 5 to 7 p.m. before the Friday night 8 p.m. kickoff at CMU. Fan vans will then be available to transport students to CMU for the game. Team co-captain Richie Carver told me after the game that students should come out to the CMU game because, quote, "It's exciting, it's a rivalry game, and we're going to win," end quote. Jake Como told me after the Geneva game that, quote, there were some big hits and some chippiness, and it's only going to be magnified when we play CMU because we hate them and they hate us, end quote. So, Kyle, it's evident that these players are really excited and ready for their rivalry matchup against CMU, encouraging everybody on campus to spend their Friday night watching Point Park Rugby.
All right, Josh, now talk about some game plan that might be going into the CMU game for the Pioneers.
Well, Kyle, Point Park really wanted to change their game plan up from week 1 against Grove City College, where they didn't really have a set game plan. In game 2, they really wanted to involve their big men more, and they're going to do a lot of that in game 2, or in game 3 against Carnegie Mellon, rather. With the bigs, they really started to get tired in the second half, which led to their loss against Geneva College. Despite the fatigue that set in with them, Richie Carver told me that they're going to keep the same game plan against Carnegie Mellon and hope to just fine-tune a couple things.
Now, why do you think this team is 0-2? Do you think it's just because of the depth, or do you think it's something they're doing technically?
Well, no, Kyle, they have a lot of depth on the team. I think a lot of it just comes down to silly mistakes that are being made on offense. They're making a lot of turnovers that have came, and they're really not playing that badly. The scoreboard doesn't reflect that because they start losing it later in the game, but that has a lot to do with fatigue, which hopefully they can start to muster up some more and build up that fatigue in the later games.
Now, what can we expect in the road ahead for this Pioneers rugby team?
Well, with a short season of only 7 games, we're already 2 games in, and the Pioneers are already 0-2. Their goal this season was to finish above 500, and to do that, they have to win against Carnegie Mellon this Friday. If they don't, they're going to have to win out in order to finish just above 500. After Carnegie Mellon, they will face Fairmont State in West Virginia the next Friday.
Thanks, Josh. Coming up after our final break, the Case of the Week crew takes a look at what could possibly be the issue with the Steelers after the debacle against the Ravens.